Welcome, folks, to Dicey Banter. This is the TTRPG Talk Show where we talk to all the makers and shakers within the tabletop space while having fun and meaningful conversations while we're at it. And with that, before we get started, I and this channel stand against genocide and ethnic cleansing, and we support all the oppressed peoples of the world struggling against injustice, imperialism, and colonization. Free DRC, free Sudan, and free Palestine. And with that, folks, hello, I am Valiant Dorian. I use him, his pronouns. I'm a TTRPG performer, GM, writer, Twitch variety streamer. I'm also your host for this evening. You can find me all on the internet at Valiant Dorian or at Otso SpiritBear. Please enjoy that lovely treasure I just say you on. And tonight, I have a wonderful guest, a distinct pleasure of interviewing our wonderful guest, Sebastian Yue. They are a game designer who have worked with among several IPs, including Apocalypse Keys and Flea Mortals. Sebastian, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Sebastian Yue. I use they, them pronouns. I work full time at the tabletop industry at my day job. I'm a publishing liaison at Hit Point Press, who are a Canadian tabletop publisher. And I also do a lot of freelance work. You can see me as a designer in the upcoming Tomb Raider Shadows of Truth RPG. And you can also find my editing work in the upcoming Stormlight RPG, which I'm very excited about those two projects. Thank you for having me.
I am so pleased to have you here, and I can't wait to talk about all the amazing work that you do. And with that, hey folks, if you're enjoying today's Icy Banner, please consider donating and leaving us a tip. The funds raised will be used to tip myself and our amazing guests to show your appreciation. Use exclamation point donate in chat to support Dicey Banner. And with that, I guess the best way to begin is to by beginning. So let's talk about your TTRPG experience. It's a question I ask all of my guests when they come here onto Dicey Banner. I ask about your origin story. So how did you get into the TTRPG hobby?
Yeah, it was I mean, as with everyone, I think it was a number of things that just kind of collided and happened at once. So at the time, I started in 2019 and didn't publish
Mm-hmm.
anything until 2020. And so I
Mm.
started in 2019 because I was actually attending a support group, an adult support group for trans
Mm.
people with eating disorders, and we were taking
Mm-hmm.
turns facilitating the group. And at
Yeah.
the time, I was really enjoying playing D&D. And I was like, well, I can write a small, like a one-shot adventure for us to play through, and I would
Mm-hmm.
be happy to host that. And so I did do that, and it was received really positively, and I didn't expect for people to have so much fun with it. And one
Mm-hmm.
person asked, are you going to publish this? And it hadn't occurred to me to do that at all. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what, I might. And so I looked into it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in like the winter of 2019. And then, of course, in 2020, the pandemic happened, and I
Yes.
was laid off from my communications job around the same
Mm-hmm.
time, which
Mm-hmm.
was stressful, but also it meant I had a lot of free time. And so while I was searching for jobs and getting my life together, I was
Mm-hmm.
also preparing this adventure for publication. And so I took a course with the Storytelling Collective, the Write
Ah,
Your
yeah.
First Adventure workshop course, which I really enjoyed. It helped me a lot. And that adventure is called Lake of Secrets, and you can buy it on the DMs Guild right now. But it's very much from that time in my life, and it was the first thing I ever published, and I did that, and I found that I just wanted to keep doing it and to keep telling stories and to keep writing and designing things that people would love to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of kept doing that. And I'm here now.
And yeah,
So,
you sure are here now. I mean, that's incredible. The so based on that, you kind of begun a deeper foray in 2019 to immediately publishing your first adventure within the year in 2020, which is incredibly impressive. Um, and I wanted to ask more about that your journey as a game designer. Was that your first foray then into game design? Was publishing that adventure?
yes, that was my first foray into game design itself. Before then, I hadn't actually done game design really. I
Mm.
didn't know a lot about it. It hadn't really occurred to me that it was a thing I could do, and I didn't realize I was doing game design until I was writing this adventure. And I was like, actually, wait, this is design. I am making stab blocks, and I am making
Yeah,
mechanics for this. Actually, like, you know, okay,
yeah.
I see.
And so how did that move then? Because that's from a D&D adventure, and now you are obviously a designer on TTRPG systems outside of the traditional D&D structure. How did that transition happen for you as a game designer to begin outside of writing out your first adventure, writing for systems and narrative design, etc.?
Yeah. In 2021,
Mm-hmm.
I participated in the tabletop mentorship program, and I
Mm,
was paired with the wonderful Jess Mayer, who is online as Burst of Hope.
yeah.
They were an incredible mentor. I applied and I said, "Well, this is the game that I'm working on," and that game
Mm,
became Crossroads, which is up on itch.
mm,
I didn't really know what where I wanted to go with it necessarily, and I
mm-hmm.
was chatting with Jess regularly, and they really helped me work out how to do it, and they
Mm-hmm.
gave me a lot of confidence. And so, like, the game that I designed, that is an original game.
Mm-hmm.
It has a map making element, and there's also cards. It's a little bit weird, but I was like, I'm just gonna make this little game and see where it goes. And
Yeah.
so that was the first time I tried to make a game that was like mine. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
call it a system. It's more just
It's
it's
just a little
a mix
game.
of mechanics that kind of made sense to me. But yeah, so I did that, and then I kept finding, honestly, like finding Utopia, which is
Mm-hmm.
a collective of people of color who are also in the TTRPG space and also in the streaming space. These days, they do a lot of charity streams,
Mm-hmm.
particularly for the causes that you mentioned in your introduction.
Yeah.
Very much in line with that. And so I met a lot of people through that community, and
Mm-hmm.
I used to do live streams, but not necessarily because I think that everyone needs to watch me playing a game, but because those were the places that I could experience new games, and because people
Mm-hmm.
wanted to run games for streams. And I played a lot of one shots and got a lot more exposure to the indie community there.
Yeah.
And with community comes collaboration. And so a lot of the folks who I work with now, I mean, I met Candy and I met Rue, both of
Ah,
whom are now doing
yes.
amazing things in the space. And we've just been kind of like long-term friends at this
Mm.
point. So
Yeah, as someone who also joined the tabletop space and had one of my first community connections in Utopia, 100% retweeting all everything that you said. I mean, that's how I knew of you, was through all of the work that you've done with several other people in 2021 in the Utopia Discord. And that's how I began my start. And you said something very interesting about making your fun little game that was yours. And this is a question I ask all of my game designers that come on to Dicey Banter. What do you think is a Sebastian core game? What game is so intrinsically you?
Honestly, I don't necessarily have a game that is intrinsically me so much as these days I've kind of found my footing and found the themes that I really like to work with.
Hmm.
And so, if you invite me to design for your project, you will most likely have to deal with me trying to put doppelgangers in it. You might find that I put tentacle monsters in it. I'm constantly wanting to do things with time and with the emotion of shame. Like those are like the things that come up in my work a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Thank you for answering that question. And with that, I think I would love to bring us back on over then from away from your journey as a game designer onto one of your most recent writings, which is your experience writing as a stretch goal writer for Apocalypse Keys. I would love to chat about that. So let's talk about that. What was the experience like being a stretch goal writer on Apocalypse Keys, a much beloved indie game?
Honestly, it was really, really fantastic. This was my first time writing a Powered by the Apocalypse playbook.
Mm,
And honestly, Ray was really fantastic.
yes.
He presented everyone who was a stretch goal writer with a very thorough design guide. And so
Hmm.
I had a lot of guidance for what I was supposed to be doing with the design, and we had meetings and workshops, and we did also playtest the playbooks. Myself and the other
Oh,
playbook
nice.
stretch goal writer, Josh, we swapped playbooks and played each other's, and we did that with the playtested, not the playtest adventure, the adventure that came with the stretch goal
Hmm.
package, the one by the Company of Gentry by Kieran Gillen.
Mm,
So that was really incredible too. I was given a lot of freedom to write about things that really spoke to me, and I submitted 3 pitches initially, and Ray looked at those and said, "Okay, this one, I can't resist the themes of this one." And it was fun because my playbook is called The Untethered, and
Yes.
Josh's playbook is called The Chained, and so there was some nice kind of
Oh, it's contrast.
resonance and also friction between the two, and that
Yeah.
I found to be super interesting. I didn't know what he was writing when I pitched mine, and so I think that Ray was just in the background like, I will do this, and yeah, that was a big brain move on their part.
That is so cool. I didn't realize that there was some really cool like thematic resonance that's happening behind the scenes as well. But you talked about having a pretty robust framework and robust guide in writing for Apocalypse Keys. And having recently been a stretch goal writer myself, one thing I've discovered is one of the main responsibilities of stretch goal writers to work within the framework of Apocalypse Keys. Could you share with us what that process looked like and how that was interesting and or challenging?
Right. Yeah. So a lot I take it when I'm writing for somebody else's system, when I am not the system designer, but I have the freedom to bring my own vibe, as it were, to the game. It's I view it as my job to immerse myself in the system and to really understand the intentionality and the
Yeah.
experience that the designer is intending for the players to come away with. Apocalypse
Yeah.
Keys is highly emotional. The characters take up so much space, so much that often like you'll end up pausing the mystery that you're working on to deal with the characters and their huge feelings and their huge messy breakdowns.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to play with that. And the design guide was very thorough. It was, you know, here is an introduction, here is like we write it in this kind of lyrical way. The first line, you know, is always something like this, the second line is always something like that. And so I found that I was adapting my voice very much to align with this with the voice of the game, and that was really interesting, and it was also really fun,
Yeah.
because this is like Apocalypse Keys is so messy and so queer. Like
Yes.
it made me very happy to be writing for it. It was huge fun the whole time. And there are some things like I'm trying to remember what I put in my first draft, but the like originally I didn't come with a what kind of monster can you play here. I came with this is the emotion I want to create, and Ray was like, okay,
Ooh.
I can see that you're playing with this emotion, but like what is monstrous about this character?
Mm.
And I thought about that and I was like, okay, but what if the character's kind of central power was that they could just keep like running into doppelgangers of themselves? What if they could keep manifesting people from who are
Mhm.
them from other realities? And you know, what is their relationship to the kind of endless possibilities that these
Mhm.
realities represent? And
Yeah.
so from there, I found the core of the playbook that I wanted to write. And so if you play the Untethered, you will be manifesting doppelgangers, and you'll be
Yes.
taking power from them, and you'll be having, you know, possibly toxic relationships with them if you want to. Like, yeah,
Apocalypse Keys and
yeah, in
toxic,
toxic
like,
relationships, like,
messy
yeah,
queerness.
you
I
know,
see Mythic
toxic
Initiative.
relationships, yeah.
I see what you guys can get up to. Shout out to Mythic Initiative. That is that is so deeply cool. And it's also very when I read through the playbook myself, I love doppelgangers, but we'll talk more about doppelgangers in a second. But let's talk about the Untethered playbook. And you mentioned many of your core style includes doppelgangers, includes talking about shame and things like that. What were your main inspiration points when you begun designing the Untethered playbook, and what kind of evolved as you continue designing on that playbook?
So I knew that like the core concept, because every playbook comes with like an
Hmm.
origin question, and it kind of
Yes.
establishes like, you know, where did you come from and why are you here? Why are you working with the rest
Mm.
of the omens for division? And I thought fundamentally, I knew I wanted to write about someone being kicked out of their community for
Yes.
whatever reason. And the origin question, you can establish what that reason is. It might be because maybe your community already had someone who was filling the role that you would have
Mm.
filled, or maybe it's because your community sensed that there was, you know, darkness in your heart, and they kicked you out because they were afraid you would turn evil. Like there are a lot of
Mm.
possibilities, but I knew that like at the heart of it, I wanted it to be about like a monster who felt a deep shame about being kicked out of this community and torn between wanting to go their own way and wanting to leave that behind, and then also wanting to come back and prove to the community that actually they were wrong to kick them out, and that like they're a character with something to prove. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of tension between, wait, do I want to, what am I striving for perfection because it's what I want, or am I striving for perfection because it's what my community would have wanted for me? And maybe if I were perfect, they would have kept me.
That
So like
is
the central question is like, if I were perfect, would they have kept me? Like that's very much like the obsession of the playbook.
that is so deeply interesting because a lot of storytelling centering around similar themes, there's always a pull towards action, right? And oftentimes the question of the motivation behind the actions that are being taken happens later. And being able to kind of like reflect that in the Untethered playbook as a consistent question that you have to reckon with as you grow and develop as a character is so deeply interesting. And I will pull on that thread a little bit more later, but I would love to talk about doppelgangers. Um, so one of the big cornerstones is doppelgangers. I You clearly have a huge interest in them. Why have you made them a focal point in the design of this playbook? And why are you so interested in doppelgangers in the first place?
Oh, very good questions. I think for this playbook, I was already thinking, like, I had kind of doppelgangers on my mind, and I
Mm,
was thinking about when I was thinking about the monstrous abilities and like the other that would go alongside with fit in with the established playbooks, but also do something completely different.
mm-hmm,
Honestly, one of my struggles with this was that I think of, okay, wait, I can make a move that does this, and then I would look into
mm.
the other playbooks, and I'd be like, okay, that one already does that. Okay, let's see, like,
Ah,
how can I do, like, this game is so huge spicy, and there were times when I was like, I don't know what I can do that is
like
going to make
distinct
this
from
playbook
everyone else.
distinguished. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, the shade has a relationship to death, like
Mm,
the surge is about a toxic relationship, and I was thinking, okay, so like what could this one's power be? And I thought,
mm,
well, no one has done like doppelgangers yet, and I think that could be really interesting because they the central question for me for
mm-hmm.
doppelgangers is, what makes a doppelganger your doppelganger? Like what traits and
Interesting.
characteristics of yourself would you recognize anywhere, regardless of upbringing and circumstance? Like
Mm,
what makes you, your like you at your core?
that is
And
so
that was an
interesting.
interesting question to wrestle with for the untethered, who is kind of having an identity crisis, sort of.
Mm.
So like that's a direction you can take them.
That is so deeply interesting to me because a lot of the stories that center doppelgangers often focus on the aspect that's almost opposite to what you are interested in. It's how is the doppelganger alien to you? How is it distinctly not you and separate from your own like sense of self and agency? I remember, God, I can't remember the title of this book. Oh, I had it. It vanished. But there's a book I read in high school that centered around doppelgangers and a man's experience meeting his doppelganger, and how it was an omen and a warning for a calamity that's what hit him and his family. And I would love to hear you talk more about the idea of um, doppelgangers as a reflection of self and how that ties into the Untethered playbook and trying to finding
Yeah,
yours because you're thrown out from your community, and then you find more of yourself. Is this a way of finding community amongst yourself?
in a way, yes. There is a ruin move that deals with that, actually.
Oh yes.
Yeah, there's a ruin move that deals with that. So not actually, no, there are two moves. There is one where you can create like a doppelganger of an NPC that you make,
Ooh.
and you're trying to create like this perfect family
Mm,
of people who will love you for who you are and whom you can control. Like control is also a really big part of this playbook,
Yeah.
and it operates on a kind of ticking clock mechanic. And when the clock fills, like the people that you've created for this family, they turn on you because they realize that you've been trying to control them, and then they
Deeply
become
terrifying.
a faction. Yeah, they become a faction of their own, and then they try to hunt you down because you've just been putting them there for your own use, and that's not that's not an acceptable way to treat people. But and there is a final mystery move whereby you receive an invitation from your community and they've invited you back, and in that moment it's your choice whether you go back to them and how you interact with them, or whether you reject the invitation and you refuse to go. And one of the options for if you go back to them is you return and everybody there is unrecognizable. They are now an army of your doppelgangers at your command. And so it's yeah, there's just a lot. There is a lot that you can do with them, and I'm fascinated about it because the idea of having a doppelganger necessitates there being a reality from which the doppelganger originates.
Yes.
And it's like a lot of the Untethered's preoccupations are about like what could have been, what could I have been if I'd have stayed. Like if my community had loved me as I was, then who would I be? Would I be happier? Would I be healthier? Like and there's a lot of, and so the shame piece is like some of the doppelgangers have like one good quality about them, and there is a move where you can take that one good quality and add it to your own, but doing so destroys the doppelganger. And like it's the idea of how much of yourself are you willing to sacrifice to become your ideal self, and
quite
it's a lot of
literally.
so I wanted that to be an option for players who wanted to engage with that kind of thing. And in the playing the Untethered guide, like I do know that move is extremely hypocritical because it I think the exact phrasing I used was you could take that quality and add it to your perfection, but of course if you were perfect you wouldn't need it. So there's just this impossible this impossible quest for perfection that the poor Untethered has to deal with. That really interested me. And yeah, I thought that like there's the idea of being able to recognize the power of a doppelganger, but also kind of hating them because you can say, well, like this person reminds me of me, and actually that's disgusting. Like I can see all of my weaknesses are here in this person, and ew,
despite
like,
everything, it's still you, right?
yeah, despite everything, it's still you, and it's terrible. So that's also one option.
One of the like deeply interesting things about the way that you write doppelgangers and the way that this playbook plays out in narrative is this constant tension of placating the idea of perfection within oneself, but still coming to terms with the imperfection that's still at its core in striving to make yourself perfect. And there's so much shame in every layer of the playbook. And for folks at home, we have production meetings before we do Dicey Banter. And during said production meeting, Sebastian, you said something very interesting to me, and that is shame is the most interesting to write about. Please tell us, why is shame the most interesting to write about?
Honestly, there is so much to work with, and
Okay.
everyone experiences it.
Mm.
Like even if you think you don't experience it anymore, like everyone has experienced it. And honestly, if you don't experience it anymore, then congratulations on doing the inner work on getting rid of that. Because you know what, I love that for you. It's yeah, but I love shame. It's a very private
It's so
thing, and it
human.
just yeah, it's such a human thing, and
Yeah.
it's something that a lot of people will sit alone with. And whereas like uh anger, huge spicy emotion also, but that one is a very external one, and it's kind of like shame is, I find, people will go a long way to hide shame, whereas anger will kind of come out eventually, or people will realize that there is a benefit to expressing anger, because oftentimes, I mean, well, when you're coming from a marginalized perspective, I'm sure you can identify with this. A lot of times anger is just reinforcing boundaries that are reasonable to have. Whereas shame, like, it's very difficult to justify being open about shame and being and experiencing it. And so I really wanted to write for a character who was extremely emotionally unavailable to everybody else in the group, but also you can see through their moves that they are wrestling with this absolutely devastating internal conflict. And it was interesting to me to find ways to have this playbook engage in a meaningful way with the other players without feeling like they're kind of doing their own thing, brooding in the corner. And so, like, I thought that because this playbook is so focused on perfection and control, that there could be moves where that, you know, your doppelgangers are just around in the world and they whisper to you secrets, and so you can identify what people want the most, and then you can exploit it in whatever way you like. And there's a lot to play with how the untethered kind of tries to control others because they worry that they can't control themselves. And there's a move where you can project onto your friend, onto somebody else in the group, and you can watch them try to do a thing, and you can say, actually, you've really disappointed me because you're not performing to my standards. And yeah, so
oh my goodness.
And then you can scold your friend and be like, what are you doing? Like, you know, you're making me look bad, you're embarrassing me. You can say whatever it is you like and just criticize what they did. And then you can make a roll with that, and the outcome is kind of determined by, maybe that one is not the one that you make a roll with. I need to make sure I'm doing this correctly. You do not in fact make a roll about it. You have to you tell them all of your criticisms, and then the other player gets to say, you know what, you're right, I didn't do well enough, let me try again. Or they can say, that's absolute bullshit, what are you talking about, I don't agree with you and I did just fine. And there are different outcomes depending on whether they accept or reject your criticism. And so player agency was really interesting to me in this playbook too, because like the untethered needs to feel a sense of control over others, but of course it can't infringe on anyone else's player agency. And it felt really important to me to be able to have this playbook, the moves inherently have that be a negotiation between the two players that are playing. And so I figured out that there's I used a similar framework to the reveal your heart move, which is a core move, wherein you can ask each other questions and you get to answer them. And so this, in a way, is the untethered posing this question of, do you agree with me? Here's my opinion. Do you agree? And then the other player can be like, well, my character would actually do that. Like, my character's been falling for you and will do anything to please you. You know, like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, or they can be like, actually, no, like my character can recognize that the untethered is on some bullshit, and this is not an okay way to speak to your friends.
Absolutely.
So like, just there's a lot of things to do with shame, and so that move is very much the untethered, like projecting their insecurities onto someone else. And you know, again, like there's I've encountered people like that in my life, and I've been that person in my life too. Like, you know when you're a child and you find out that actually like your high school bully is like secretly really traumatized, and you know that's kind of why they're a dick. Like, you know, there's a kind of there's an element of that in there in the untethered.
So that makes again, like we've already spoken briefly about like how shame is such a intrinsic, private, secretive part of self, right? And how that it manifests. The very interesting thing about shame, and I only started thinking about this because we talked about it during our pre-production meeting, was this. And as I reflected on shame, I realized actually there's a lot of like behaviors and other emotions that are deeply rooted typically from shame, which is it's a very interesting origin point for conflict. And in a game like Apocalypse Keys, where personal and interpersonal conflict is a huge part of the system, You've dug into a very, very interesting aspect. I did want to tap into a very interesting thing from your perspective as a game designer, and that's player agency. You've made a playbook where the desire for control is huge, and a huge motivation, like motivator for all of this is the pursuit of perfection, as well as fear of abandonment, really. um and I wanted to ask you, from like a game design standpoint, in the way that you've designed the playbook, how do you make, like, keep that balance of like staying true to those like really important core themes of the playbook, versus the like agency of other players who are likely to be feeling the brunt of a lot of projection of huge tension that's coming from a player that's using the untethered playbook.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so there are a couple of answers. I approached this
Hmm.
from a couple of different perspectives.
Gotcha.
One of them is also that I haven't discussed the keeper's role in this playbook,
Yes.
and there are instructions for the keeper as
Hmm.
well. And the keeper's moves here are, one of them is to give the untethered a willing victim, and so there are
Mm.
moves that the untethered has to interact with the other player characters, and there are also moves that the untethered has to influence and interact with NPCs.
Gotcha.
And so, like in my instructions to the keeper, I've said here are the themes that you need to be reinforcing at every turn, and
Hmm.
here are some of the ways in which you can do it. And giving the untethered a willing victim is,
Hmm.
I thought that was a very big, like, kind of juicy instruction.
That is
Um,
really juicy, and I think it's a great instruction to give to to the keeper or a GM. It's one my favorite thing about rule books is if or any other type of guidance for GMs is if, please give me explicit instructions that will really make my job a lot easier. But yes, elaborate more on your other instructions to the keeper to facilitate this role.
Yeah, so these are the kind of advanced keeper moves
Mm.
to go along with the regular keeper moves, and I think every
Hmm.
playbook will have those. And so my other instructions were, repeatedly tempt the untethered to be vulnerable, and
Mm.
that's an instruction for, like, if you're playing out a scene, like this is your chance to force the untethered to give into that temptation, to actually to be truly known, like
Mm.
that's like for someone to truly know you, isn't that mortifying,
The
like?
fear of being
And
known,
the
absolutely.
fear of being known, and so the untethered has this struggle with
Mm.
wanting to be perfect, but also, wait, you can't know me until I'm done, like, making myself the way that I want to be.
Hmm.
But also, like, this kind of very sad desperation of wanting to be seen,
Hmm.
but also just like the deep shame of, oh, like, what if they do see and they see that I'm not perfect yet? And
Mm.
and as you mentioned, like, abandonment is a huge problem for the untethered, because, like, they've been rejected once for whatever reason that you've decided in your backstory,
Hmm.
like for some reason that may or may not have been within your control. And for
Hmm.
whatever reason, like, the untethered has got it in their head that actually, if they change something about themselves, then maybe they might be welcomed back one day.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that the keeper can do to facilitate moments between the untethered and NPCs, and also the untethered and other players.
Mm.
And the conversations for the other players, like the moves that involve the other players,
Yeah.
were the one that I talked about, like the move about being mean to your friends.
Yeah.
And
Criticizing your friends the move.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's criticizing your friends the move, and there's actually I want to say that there's three that necessitate
Hmm.
having another player involved.
Hmm.
And so I was looking at the other playbooks and seeing how they interacted with the other player characters, and from there I kind of figured out, like, ways to approach it. Some of the other playbooks do it really interestingly.
Mm.
Like, honestly, you can't play the Surge without, like, interacting with someone and making them be your heart, and it's all like,
Yeah.
you and that toxic relationship. Like, you need another person in that relationship. And like, the Surge also has a very much like, I am too powerful. I cannot contain all of this power. Like, you
Mm.
actually need to be my vessel, because I will, without it,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go berserk. I
Yeah.
can't contain it. And so the untethered has this idea of my power is secret, it's still growing, I don't know who I can share it with,
Mhm.
um but also I need to use this to my advantage. And so a lot of
Mm.
the untethered is about tactically revealing and concealing information. And another move that I have is called Conceal Your Heart. So it's not,
Mm.
yeah, I say that it's not to replace Reveal Your Heart, and
Mhm.
you can still do that if you want to, and
Mhm.
that would be a very momentous move for your character. But also, I thought that it would be appropriate for the untethered to have access to this other
Yeah.
move that in a way was a mirror of that move.
Yes.
And this, like, to do this, you can choose to lie to another person, and you can maintain the mask of perfection that you wear.
Mm.
And so when you would reveal your heart, you can instead choose to do this move.
Mhm.
And it's in a I took a lot of inspiration from the mechanics of the original move, and thought, wait, how could I invert this to
Invert it,
make it
yeah.
be about lying to someone, or like trying to conceal your feelings, even though you
Mm.
so badly want to be vulnerable with other people.
Mm.
And like you do roll on this move, and um there is it's really interesting because this move will change and advance your relationship with the other characters at the
Oh, that's so
table,
cool. Yeah.
because the options are, you manage to do it, you turn away from your feelings, you can close yourself off and behave the way that you think that they want. And
Mm.
so there are a number of mechanical options to reflect how you do that.
Mhm.
And another option is that you do great, you manage to conceal your emotions to the point where it's really obvious that you're hiding
Mhm.
something. And then the other character has the chance to answer the question, why do you trust me? And
Mm.
you both ask that question to each other. And depending on the response, there's a bunch of mechanical things that happen. And I think the fail state, that was if you concealed your heart from a player character until the end of the mystery, they get a new way of gaining darkness tokens, which is the currency used in the game to modify
Mhm.
the results of your roll.
Mhm.
And the list of options that they have to choose from are related to the untethered's themes. And so in a
Mm.
way, like that character gains a way of getting darkness tokens that is
Mm.
reflective of the themes of the untethered. And so in that moment, they do actually learn a little bit about the untethered, and they can choose what that method of gaining darkness tokens is. There's a pick list. And for the
Mm.
NPCs, you reveal a flaw of yours to the NPC, and the NPC will take advantage of it because
Yes.
you're trying so hard to maintain your grip on your
Yeah.
feelings, and sometimes you're just not that good at it. And
No.
for the untethered, they just have all of this internal conflict, and they're doing their absolute best not to tell anyone. And at some point, like, something's got to give. And so if you roll a failure on that move, that happens. So presenting
Mm.
the yeah, so designing options that would work for players and for
Mm.
NPCs, and figuring out where and when to place those choices,
Mm.
those were things I was thinking about.
Yeah.
So with the player agency piece, the other players always have the choice to accept or reject
Yeah.
what interact with the untethered's moves in a way that
Mm.
feels true to their own character,
Mhm.
and have the mechanics resolve depending on their choice as well.
That is so deeply cool, and we'll get into more aspects of the Apocalypse Keys after this break. Folks, please get up, stretch, pet your pets. Please tell Mr. Valiant Dorian loves them very, very much. When we come back, we're going to talk about pain, perfection, and parallel realities. And we're also going to talk about more moves in Apocalypse Keys. And then we're going to talk more about the world of publishing. And so if you're interested in all that, please stay tuned as we chat more with our incredible guests. We'll be taking our 10-minute break now. Take care, everyone. Bye. Hi, folks. Welcome back to Dicey Banter. We're here with our special guest, Sebastian Yue, talking about all things Apocalypse Keys as well as the world of publishing. But before we get back into the interview, I would like to remind folks, if you'd like to support the show, you could also donate. The funds raised we use to support myself as well as our guests to show your appreciation. Use exclamation point donate in chat to support us. And with that, we'll jump right back in, Sebastian, into the interview as we talk more about Apocalypse Keys. This is a very deeply interesting playbook you made for the Untethered. And what you mentioned before the break is one of the central themes of this playbook is the idea of possibility, alternate realities, and possibility. Why have you decided to take that direction with the lore of the doppelgangers than perhaps maybe like a more a ghostly version? Perhaps why was that the direction you went into?
Yeah, I thought about it, and not only did it make sense for the doppelgangers that I wanted to include, but
Hmm.
it made sense for me as something that the untethered would be preoccupied about because
Ah.
they're very like, well, the character for me is very
Hmm.
obsessed with, like, what, with the what ifs of the situation.
Mm.
And so, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? Would my
Hmm.
community still have kept me, and I wouldn't have been kicked out? And
Hmm.
undoubtedly, I mean, if you think about parallel realities, like, the idea of those is that this is a reality in which this pivotal decision happened,
Yeah.
or this is a reality in which this big event happened, didn't happen. And so, inevitably, there is a reality in which the community kept the untethered. And a
Yes.
part of that, it meant that I could add that element of striving towards that
Mm.
reality for the untethered. And
Mm.
so, the doppelgangers kind of had to come from somewhere. And so, if you're pulling them from other realities, then that kind of makes
Hmm.
sense. And it opens up a lot of possibilities of the untethered. Your
Mm.
character knows that it is a possibility because there's an alternate reality in which it
Mm.
happened. And a lot of it is, I wanted to convey that it's very difficult um to achieve this quest for perfection, because of course the
Yeah.
whole point of alternate realities is that there's a whole chain of events that happen
Yeah.
differently, and so really, like, it bears no resemblance to this reality whatsoever. But
Hmm.
a lot of the focal point about alternate realities is often like there's this, what it comes down to, this one decision, when in fact it
Mm.
kind of doesn't, because there have to be, like, the conditions for that decision to be made, or for this event to happen or not happen.
Mm.
And it's just a whole, like, the idea of an alternate reality is so fascinating to me. And so the poor untethered is out here being like, okay, well, I know it's possible theoretically. How do
Yeah.
I reshape myself? How do I reshape this reality to fit that
Mm.
one? How can I get there? Because some version of me got it, and
Mm.
I'm not going to let them have it because I want it. I thought that was a interesting direction that you could take the character.
Mm. That is so deeply interesting as well because knowing the concept of alternate realities, it's an impossible standard that's being set, an unachievable one, an unachievable standard of perfection that the untethered is placing upon themselves. And I would love to tap into that because another central theme of the playbook is the idea of um, pain and perfection and the consistent striving for perfection and the inevitable pain that comes along with it. How do you as a game designer marry those two concepts, right? Because there are mechanical successes that you can get in the game, but how do we keep that theme of like striving for perfection can also equate to giving you pain?
Yeah, so for me, it was, how do you achieve perfection? There is no, like, I don't think that you can achieve perfection in a
Mhm.
painless way.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of wanting perfection in the first place, like, that hurts. Like,
Yeah.
even
Very
before you've even
sad. Yeah.
started to do anything, that hurts. Like,
Hmm.
why do you need to be perfect? What does it mean to be perfect? And really, like, who's
Mm.
perfect are you trying to embody? And
Mm.
so for me, those two are kind of inextricably linked, really. There is no way to strive for perfection without there being pain. And
Yeah.
the untethered has a lot of different ways to inflict pain upon themselves and to inflict pain upon others. And a lot of those come from, like, the untethered's own insecurities.
Yes.
And I just it's so interesting to me because every single playbook gets the, I embody, this quality and this quality of the apocalypse.
Mm.
And I noticed that nobody had done pain and perfection yet, and I was like, okay, well, those are
Mm.
going to be, like, those are just kind of the themes that come
Mm.
with shame. And that just kind of, those became the driving force of this playbook.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
I
so go ahead.
no, continue your
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, I was thinking, and just because like there are ways for the untethered to kind of undermine their own integrity and
Oh.
sacrifice pieces of themselves in a way to try and meet this standard. And like there are lots of different directions you could take this character. You
Mm-hmm.
can kind of frame it as I'm someone who's trying to cut away all of the imperfections that are within me, and emerging from that, like I will be perfect after I've gotten rid of this, that, and the other. And of course, it's a game about monsters, but it's also a game about being human, because we're
Yes.
humans playing this game. And
Mm-hmm.
it hurts a little bit less when you can like project all of your problems onto this little blorbo who is who you can get up and be like, okay, well, they're in the torment, they're in the midst of torment, cool, not my problem.
Not
Like
my it's 100% my problem, but at least when I'm engaging with it, I
yeah,
get to have all the fun in being able to engage with the mess.
yes.
That would
It's so messy.
it's I deeply love that. I also know that one of the things that you wanted to chat about especially was about the move with unparalleled resilience. Why tell me more about the this particular move, unparalleled resilience, and what inspired you to write it.
Yeah, so this is quite possibly my favorite mechanic that I have ever written
Yeah.
to date. I'm really, really pleased with it. And
Yeah.
it's a ruin move. And so in Apocalypse Keys, like the
Mhm.
ruin move is how much of a harbinger are you willing to become to do what you
Mhm.
need to do? And for the untethered,
Mhm.
um y- sorry, there is a mechanic in this game whereby you mark conditions, and if you mark all your conditions you get to hit your breaking point. And it's a really
Mm.
lovely mechanic whereby you have a big spicy breakdown in front of everybody, and and like manifestations of your emotions come out into the world and they ruin everything for
Mm.
everyone else, and it's a big moment. And
Yes.
it's also a very vulnerable moment, and the untethered, it's a moment that the untethered wants to avoid at all
Mm.
costs. And so this is an optional move. So if you want to play an untethered who is kind of worse at concealing their
Mm.
feelings, then you can. But I was thinking, how do I make a character who is doing their best to be emotionally unavailable, but do it in such an interesting way that it still progresses their relationship with other characters? And
Mhm.
I thought, okay, so hitting your breaking point is dependent on marking your conditions. What would the
Yeah.
untethered want to do to avoid this? How could they avoid this? And
Mhm.
I thought, well, obviously they don't want there to be conditions to mark, because conditions are like they would consider those to be imperfections.
Yeah.
And each playbook gets custom conditions, and depending on the circumstances, you can choose which ones to mark. And so the conditions
Mhm.
for the untethered are insecure, lonely, tender, and trusting. None of which they really want to be.
No.
Like no, like I don't want people knowing that I'm insecure. Like that's cringe, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so, um, and so I wanted there to be a move that was kind of, panic button. I'm about to hit my breaking point, but I have one last
Mm.
thing that I can do to avoid hitting that point.
Yeah.
And so you mark a ruin. You have a couple of options. One is that you mark a ruin and you can
Mhm.
tell everyone how a part of your body shows the imperfection that lies beneath your surface. And you can clear one condition and you can avoid hitting a breaking point. And it's a, kind of sigh of relief. Okay, like we avoided it this time. We're not going to have this breakdown in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And I still have, okay. And so it's a way for the untethered to say, okay, I'm going to get myself under control. I can do
Yeah.
this.
Ooh, back to
you know
control.
yeah,
It's
back to
back
control. And
back to
so like, and
control.
I wanted that, and for that option I wanted there to be that visual, like the player has to say like my character's appearance changes because of this, and you can see
Mm.
it. So there is that. And so even if the untethered is doing this in private, they come out of it changed.
Mm.
And it could be fun having to explain that to the rest of your party. And the second option, this is the part that I really like. You can
Mhm.
mark two ruin and reject one of
Mm.
your conditions, and you can declare that it will never control you again. And you can tell everyone how a part of your body becomes eerie and perfect when you purge yourself of this weakness. And so,
Mm.
what it does mechanically is you can permanently remove the rejected condition from play. And so, it means that you cross it out from your character sheet and you can't mark it anymore. And
Mm,
you clear all of your remaining conditions and you avoid hitting breaking point. And this is a choice that you can make repeatedly until you
yeah.
have one condition left. Because the idea with that is you can keep trying to destroy these parts of yourself, but when you do
Mhm.
that, what do you have left? Like
Yeah.
it narrows your emotional range so much, and
Yeah.
you have way fewer options, and it also makes you ironically more likely to hit your breaking point. And
Yeah.
so there is no way for the untethered to get rid of all of their conditions, because this move lasts until you have one left. And so if you manage to somehow get rid of all of them, and you make one mistake, or one
That's
roll
it.
doesn't go
Yeah.
badly, then one roll goes badly for you, that's it, you are at breaking point. You could go
Hmm.
from 0 to 100 in like one condition,
Mm.
because that's all you have left. And so
So
ideally this
cool.
move would be engaging with someone who wants their character to be in constant danger of failure.
Mm.
And
Oh, yeah.
it makes and so like when that breaking point comes for the untethered, it has a it has a very specific meaning for the untethered, because if they have this move, they've gone through
Mm.
all of this stuff, all of this shit,
Yeah.
honestly, to
Yeah.
to avoid hitting their breaking point. And doing all of that has just made them more likely to do it.
More likely to do it. Oh, the
And so
irony.
I was like, sweet delicious irony, this poor character is never going to get what they want. And
Mhm.
I really liked the idea of a character who was so desperate to avoid that
Mm.
vulnerability that they would cut away every single part of themselves that they could
Mm.
until they had almost nothing.
Nothing
And
left. Yeah.
yeah.
And inevitably be doomed again
Yeah,
by
inevitably be
the very
doomed.
thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
By the very
we're
thing.
we're doomed by the narrative here. Like, yeah.
No, I love that so so much. A question I like asking the game designers that come onto my show is that because I know that as a game designer, whenever I'm in my own quiet thoughts, I have moments where I imagine my game being played by people and I wonder the kind of experiences they'll have. Or when I'm writing something, I write something for a specific experience that I hope that the players will have. I would love to ask you, when you were designing the Untethered playbook, did you have are there things that you imagine to yourself of like what you hope, expect, or imagine the gameplay experience for the Untethered to look like?
That's a really good question. I mean, ultimately, like, so I was thinking of various different move combinations
Mm,
that people could take.
yeah.
If you didn't want to engage with the whole "I'm going to cut away parts of myself," but actually I
Mhm.
want to have more fun controlling other people, you could take the moves that center on control.
Mm,
There's two or three of those aside from the core move, and you could lean into those themes more.
mm,
And I wanted to present like a selection of options. Like this is
mm,
the case for every playbook. There are different directions that you can work with within the big themes.
yeah.
And so I didn't want to necessarily force anyone to go on this very specific emotional journey while playing the
Mhm,
untethered, but rather if that's a journey you want to undertake,
mhm,
then the options are there and they're very mechanically supported. And I wanted there to be robust options to do that. But ultimately, I hope that if you play the untethered, you feel big sad for your character, but you enjoy tormenting them. And also, this is also just for the people who are clone fuckers. You can fuck your clone in this game. That is also very
You
much an experience I
understood.
want to represent. Yeah.
You knew your audience.
Yeah, I know my audience. And honestly, my audience is like, yeah, my audience is me, to be honest. So, like, yeah, yeah, but like, you can do that. If your objective is to just keep making doppelgangers and find one to fuck, you can do that. You can do whatever, like, do whatever you like. It's,
It's so
it's a good
powerful.
time.
It's deeply
Yeah,
powerful.
I thought so. Like this is pretty much the only game I could probably get away with doing that in, to be honest. So I am eternally grateful to Ray and to the Apocalypse Keys team for letting me do that.
Thanks,
But
Ray.
essentially, yeah, thank you so much. But essentially, I want people to have an emotionally resonant experience. Like, when you come away from like a really good session of a game
Yeah.
and you sit down and you're just like, damn, I'm going to think about what just occurred in that session and where do I
Yeah.
want to take my character next. And that moment was really phenomenal, and wow, wow, I'm feeling things, that's what I
Yes.
want. I would like for the experience to me to be emotionally resonant and for it to linger and to stay with you, because the stories that you tell in this game are they're gonna stay with you. They're
Yeah.
deep and messy and queer, and
Yes.
it's really good. But I was thinking, maybe for someone who really is interested in the theme of vulnerability and in the theme of perfection, and I thought it would appeal to someone who has experienced a lot of these things
Mm.
before, and who might want to explore it in a way that is, there's that degree of separation from themselves. And so if they wanted to
Yes.
channel those feelings that they haven't been able to put anywhere into this character, then like that's a way
Mhm.
to do it. All of our characters are, to an extent, an expression of ourselves, whether we want them to be or
Absolutely.
not. And so this one, I thought, this is coming from such a fundamentally like human place that
Mhm.
that it opens up that possibility. And so if people want to play this for catharsis, or if people want to play this just because like I actually want to be like a manipulative bastard, then you can do that too. Like I want it to be like I just want you to have fun with it, and for you to feel fulfilled playing
Mm.
this. And honestly, if anyone does play the Untethered, please, please, please tell me about it. I want to know about your character. I want to know about the messes that they get into. I want to know about the clones they fuck. Like, please tell me. I'm on social media everywhere at Sebastian Yue. This is an open invitation to just tag me and be like, oh my god, my game, what just happened? And I want to hear about it. So I
Use
hope you make
exclamation
it.
point guests to
Yeah,
follow
seriously.
Sebastian.
Yeah, just just please, like, make me an absolute bastard of a character who is just mean to their friends, and just make me a character who is just so sad and so sad. Yeah, just I want to see what you do with this. And honestly, like, the imagination of players is uh endless and wonderful,
Mm.
and there is no possible way I could encapsulate everything that people are going to do with this playbook. People, I hope, are going to take this playbook in directions that I could not foresee, and that's the most exciting part of it, really.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I mean, essentially, to answer your question in a less verbose manner, it was me kind of finding the themes and then breaking them down into sub themes, and then
Mm.
finding making sure that there was moves available to address the
Yeah.
sub themes and the mechanics that people would really be excited to engage in. Yeah, making
I
sure there was
mean,
enough for those choices.
we love verbosity here. The show is called Dicey Banter,
Yeah,
where
it's
we live.
banter.
Yeah, we live for the verbosity. And thank you so much for sharing your game designer insights on a playbook that clearly is one that you've enjoyed crafting. And I am looking forward to hearing folks play it. I'm looking forward to playing Apocalypse Keys. This is me looking out to the universe. Please let me play Apocalypse Keys.
Yeah,
Give me an
honestly,
opportunity.
yes, do it. Yeah, well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about that move. I've just been sitting on it
Absolutely.
because, like, I had a long, like, the project life cycle for this playbook was fairly long, and so I've been
Mm,
sitting on it, thinking, like, and also like that was one of the graces that I had for this project. I had a long
mm,
time to think about it and to really make it what something that I could be happy with. And honestly,
mm,
I can read it today. Like a lot of the projects that I've done for
mm.
myself, that I can read like a few years later and be like, you know what, I could do better now.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I could do better with this one at the moment. So I'm really, really proud of it,
I'm
and I'm
glad.
happy to share it with everybody.
I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad you've enjoyed the design process
Yeah.
of the Untethered. And with that, we're going to pivot away from Apocalypse Keys, and we're going to talk about a huge portion of your work and a part of your career in TTRPG, and that is publishing, the world of publishing. And you are currently working as a publishing liaison for Hit Point Press. And I would love to ask you, because I feel there's a lot of aspects in TTRPGs I've discovered folks just don't know about. They don't really know how it works, whether it's sensitivity consulting, production for APs, or even publishing. It's always conceptualizes this idea of like, well, I guess it's a person that does that, and when they do the thing happens, but have no idea what that actually entails. So I would, if you would like, I'd love to know about what does a day in the life of a publishing liaison look like for you? What does that work look like and entail?
Oh gosh, okay. Well, I am lucky enough that I work from home, so
Basic.
I roll
Love
out
that
of
for you.
bed. Yeah, I roll out of bed and go to work, which means that I open my work laptop and start
Mhm.
start doing that. But most of my day-to-day work involves, there is the logistical thing. So like
Mm.
I'm coordinating meetings, making sure that everyone is available to chat at the same time. But
Mm.
oftentimes it's being in those meetings and helping people determine what it is that they want to do in order to achieve their goals. And
Mm.
there are very, like you mentioned, that there is some stuff that people just don't know about publishing.
Yeah.
It's also part of my job to kind of clarify those and to demystify
Mhm.
those. And so a lot of times when I encounter people who want to get their games published by a publisher, a lot of the time that means that they want the publisher to kind of
Mhm.
pick it up and bring it to market. But the
Yes.
steps involved very much depend on where you are with your project. So if you
Yes.
have finished yours, then the support that you receive from the publisher is going to look very different versus someone who has finished their first draft, but it needs a bit of polish, and that
Mm.
you might be looking for different things. And the capacity to assist with those different levels of different stages that your project is in varies from publisher
Mhm.
to publisher. So like one of the things that Hit Point Press is really really good at is
Yeah.
the marketing and fulfillment side, and so there are different
Mhm.
arrangements that you can work out with this particular publisher. And at this
Mhm.
point, I should disclaim that everything I say here is me, and I don't necessarily represent the views of Hit Point Press.
Of course.
All of that good stuff. But
Mhm.
basically, um, like Hit Point is very good at those things in particular. And
Mm.
so a lot of the times I'll be working with people who are maybe running their own campaigns,
Mhm.
their own crowdfunding campaigns, and we'll offer ways to support them. We can, if we're running a campaign too, we can organize cross promotion wherein we shout them out and they shout us out, and we
Mm.
can kind of share audiences in that way. And for some folks, it really depends on the nature of the project. It's very much a
Yeah.
case by case basis, and all of this has to align with our timeline
Mm.
and our capabilities, because a lot of publishers will plan like years out. So like we know what we're
Yes.
going to be doing for like the next few years. That like those projects are moving forward.
Mm.
And it depends a lot on like what you need. So for some
Mhm.
folks, like working with us means like, hey, I have a finished project and it's been doing pretty well, like would you be
Yeah.
interested in carrying the digital version on your site? And
Mhm.
like if we like the project and it aligns with Hit Point Press's like publishing philosophies, then
Yeah.
that is a possibility. And it's also my job to check out like submissions, because Hit Point
Yes.
Press does have a submission form.
Mm.
To access that, you need to email support@hitpointpress.com, and that form could be sent to you.
Mm.
And so in that form, I ask people to pitch games to us, and
Yeah.
I'm interested in the kinds of experiences that someone will have playing your game, and also
Mm.
I'm interested in what makes your game unique. There are lots of games out there, so like what is unique about your game? What are you bringing that nobody else could do?
Yes.
And I know that's a really intimidating question, but
It's a
actually,
big
like
question.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, like I need to know what makes your game stand out, and like how you are, like, you know, what kind of magic can you work with game
Mm.
design. I'm really interested in that, and also it's interesting to me to. I know a lot of designers don't like to talk about themselves and to highlight the things that they're good at, but also like when asked those questions, I take those answers very seriously. So if you tell me
Mm.
that your game is going to be, is going to deliver this sort of experience, and I'm very excited about that, then like, please do. It's not the time to be modest. Like
Mm.
it's also like I found that answering those kinds of questions can help the designer like identify like the core of their game, and then like
Yeah.
come up with ways to express that and to market it and to explain it to other people.
Mhm.
And so they're good things to think about as well. So basically, like my job involves various different things. I'm working
Mhm.
with directly with other folks whose games we are supporting in various
Mm.
ways, and I also have some responsibilities on the submissions end.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
yeah.
sharing. Um, yeah, like these are I remember when, we chatted about publishing. There was so many things that I've realized that I didn't understand about publishing as well. It's this huge process that obviously, especially with with TTRPGs being a significantly different medium to books, for example, right? There is a plethora of support that folks can expect or ask for, depending on the stage of which their project's in. But I would love to hear from someone who's deep in the I have to deal with publishing on a daily basis trenches about common misconceptions that the layperson has about the world of TTRPG publishing.
Yeah, for sure. I think I mentioned that publishing is actually like several different elements, and so I can
Yeah.
give kind of an overview of like what those different elements are.
Mm-hmm.
And so to understand what you need from a publisher, you have to understand like the kind of project pipeline, as it were, and to kind of
Mm-hmm.
zoom out and identify what your project needs. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you might be looking for consultation, and this is where
Mm-hmm.
you ask a publisher for advice about various stages of publishing. And so some people who have never done crowdfunding campaigns, they might be like, hey, are you open for consultations on this, on the running of my campaign? And some people who have never done manufacturing and fulfillment, like those are kind of big logistical things. And especially if you have a kind of accessories and other physical products that aren't necessarily like the game book, that can be really intimidating. And so like that is, consultation kind of often is about those things.
Mm-hmm.
And collaboration is also another aspect of it. So like this is kind of if you want a publisher's writers, editors, artists, and designers or other staff to work on your project as part of their job. So like if you want to do that, like you need to know which roles you're looking for and the scope of work that they would be doing. And I will say about this, like it sounds really nice to be able to just kind of hand over an idea to like a business, but like it's a very difficult sell, honestly,
Yes.
and there has to be a really strong business case for it. And so like this isn't something that I have experienced managing, and I don't think it happens all too often. But yeah, but like it is still nonetheless a part of the publishing process.
Yeah.
So like the actual creation of the game. Marketing is also part of publishing. So like there are various ways that a publisher can support you. They like publishers often have access to a larger audience, so they're established, they're companies, and they have like email addresses and like newsletters and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, and also like there are other things that do contribute to like the success of a project, especially if you are crowdfunding. So things like kind of paid advertisements, like I don't expect every person who is making a game to know about how to do that. And like it's kind of intimidating, and there's a lot of like there's money involved, and it's all like, oh, okay, I don't, it can be a bit intimidating. But publishers like are experienced with those things and might be able to offer support if you know what you're looking for. And production is another part of it. So like production is like the manufacturing of the physical items. So like your game book, or if you have dice or minis or anything else, or if there's any kind of custom accessories that you're making, that like, and so like if you're making these items, like who are your manufacturers, how does it work between like getting samples for review and all of those kinds of like smaller, like kind of not the most glamorous aspects of making a game, but like these are still things that people would need to know. And so like that is part of publishing, because those are your product, right? So yeah. And once you've kind of gotten through all of that, then like there's the sales kind of transaction part of the process. And that is like the kind of the avenue through which like the public can access your game. Like, so if I go onto a storefront or an online storefront, it needs to be available. Like we need to understand, like, is there inventory? Can we ship it? Like how much is shipping going to cost? Where is it being warehoused? All of that stuff, if there is a physical product. And of course, if it's a digital product, that piece is a lot more straightforward, because then you can just kind of hook it up to like a download button, and you can get an email being like, your download is ready, and that's nice. But but there are all these kind of things to take into consideration, and all of your needs for those are going to depend on the kind of game that you are making. And so when someone is like, so publishing, I'm like, which part? Like which part? And what is your game? Like what do you and so it can seem like a really overwhelming thing. And this is kind of like, this is what like I mean, also like before I started doing this job, I also didn't know what was involved in publishing. I just kind of thought it was like,
of a
I was
of a thing.
Yeah, like I thought, I was like, I don't know. I mean, if I have a game, I can pitch it, but then it's like I didn't, like I wouldn't know what I wanted. Like,
Where to
for
start, how
instance,
to do
yeah,
it.
where to start. So, that's just things that I've learned by doing this, and
Amazing.
there's also like, there's no shame in not knowing these things. You wouldn't, yeah. So these are things you wouldn't necessarily know, and so that's okay. Some,
Yeah.
part of my job is to kind of sit down with people who have expressed interest and to say, well, these are, I'm going to break down these various aspects for you, and you can go away and think about it, and we can discuss if we're able to work together.
Mhm. Amazing.
Yeah.
I thank you for enlightening all of this for folks, because I know folks in the audience are sure um, are going to walk away from the Dicey Banter episode more enlightened about
Yeah.
the many cogs and machinations that exist within the machine that is the TTRPG publishing space, and we'll walk away with this more informed. I am going to pivot our conversation slightly to a more less on the kind of like processes of the publishing, but more on the future of publishing and the current status quo that the world of publishing looks like. You've been a staunch mentor in this space, especially regarding providing access to TTRPG publishing and the know-how in accessing publishers and pitching one's project to publishing. One huge conversation point that we're having as a community is about BIPOC access to
Mm,
to
yeah.
the world of TTRPG publishing. I would love to ask your assessment. Are we headed in the right direction? Do you think TTRPG publishing is becoming more and more accessible as time goes on?
This is again a really big question.
Yeah,
I
I know.
like,
Totally know.
yeah. So, to start off, I think I really like that there are kind of BIPOC inclusion initiatives that I can name. That's really powerful, and also like knowing
Yeah.
specific communities that I can cite that I was a part of, that I am a part of. That is
Mhm.
also really, really great. And BIPOC inclusion in particular is very important to me because that was like my entry point into the tabletop
Mhm.
space, and everyone was so nice and so welcoming, and it felt really refreshing to have like an online space where
Yeah.
we at least had this kind of commonality, and people Utopia is so great and it's so welcoming, and everyone engages in such kind faith, and
Mhm.
it's a really lovely space to be in. And so it's nice that I can name those kinds of things, and there are
Mm.
spaces. And there is the argument that the barrier to entry, like on a base kind of level, that anyone can make a tabletop game, and that is true.
Yeah.
Like if you have a means, if you have word processing software and you have access to the internet, you can upload your game
Mhm.
to itch. And so like there's this whole other conversation to be had about the internet being a human right at this point, which I do think it is.
Yes.
But like by and large, like I would say that the barrier to entry is not very high
Mm.
if you start out as a hobbyist. I
Yeah.
think with regard to the professionalization of tabletop, I think that might not be as far ahead as we would like for it to be.
Mm. Yeah.
There are really fantastic people who are doing their best to increase access to that.
Absolutely.
I know that gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the convention. There is a convention happening in Wisconsin, and there's a
Oh,
dinner
yes.
happening for people of color.
Yes. Oh, I
Yeah,
can't remember the name either. Yes, I'm familiar.
yeah,
Yep.
but there is that. Oh, sorry, it's Game Hall Con, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, it's Game Hall Con. So yeah, they're doing that, and I know that Taylor Navarro is organizing over in the UK
Friend
for
of the
people of
channel.
color. Yeah, friend of the channel. Yeah, and so of course, and at places like Big Bad Con, there are specific events to facilitate networking between people of color and industry professionals,
Mhm.
and that has been helpful to me personally. And this year,
Yes.
I'm hoping to go back to just be an industry professional, and so like I can pass on like the things that
Yeah.
I've learned and offer opportunities that I'm now in a position to offer to other people.
Mm.
And also, like if you're watching this and this is going up before Big Bad Con, I am explicitly looking for for designers who are people of color to mentor if that is something that you'd be interested in. So, I'm looking for that. So like there are those kinds of initiatives, and people are doing a really good job across the space to make the if you want to do this as a career, to make it
Mm.
easier to do this professionally
Absolutely.
as a person of color. But also, I know that there are challenges that are faced in other parts of the world. Like I know that not all countries have access to Kickstarter, for instance. And
Yes.
honestly, like there was the LATAM Breakout Initiative by Soul Muppet RPGs. Like that was a really cool thing to see. It was Soul Muppet saying, "Hey, we can manage this campaign for you, and like our games can be, your games can be fulfilled through our publishing." Pipeline,
Yeah.
and that will increase, like, we can do the distribution because like in South America, like not everyone is able to access Kickstarter. And there are also communities in like RPGC, so Southeast Asia. Some
Yes.
of the, like a lot of the work coming out of folks in that region, yeah, of course,
Yeah.
is
Come on.
yeah, it is incredible. And so I think that there's more that that folks living in North America and Europe, in North America, like myself, could be doing
Yeah.
to bridge the gap between folks in the global South. But also, like, it's nice to see that people are doing that work, and that I understand these things take time, and that like the events at Big Bad Con, that does kind of rely on being able to get to San Francisco, which is
Absolutely.
a very expensive, very long trip for folks, depending. And Big Bad Con does have scholarships, and they can provide funds, and like the people that run the convention are really lovely, and they're genuinely doing a lot. But I think that if we keep going with those sorts of initiatives, and we make them more widespread, and honestly, like, it really does just come down to like money at a lot of the time, money and access. And so if the barrier to crowdfunding can be surmounted, then like the next barrier is money. And
Absolutely.
so being a publisher means that often you already do kind of have the money to make the project. And so, like, you have full-time staff who are designing, and you can pay for art, you can pay for layout. Whereas independent folks who are trying to do this by themselves, like, they're trying to do they're teaching themselves like InDesign, and honestly, like, maybe not even InDesign, they're doing like Affinity Publisher, because that one is a one-time subscription, and you don't have to, it's a one-time fee, and you don't have to pay a subscription for it. Like, that's the program that I have, because honestly, I hate InDesign, and like yeah, and also, like, I'm not giving Adobe any money. So, like, yeah, Affinity Publisher is, and like the way that I got access to Affinity Publisher was from another person of color in the space, and he'd managed to secure a sponsorship and was able to like give out these download keys for it. And so I remember that he was advertising them on Twitter, being like, "Hey, if you're a person of color and you want access to this software, message me for a key." And I waited, because I was like, maybe there's other people who need it better. And then, like, a few days later, he was still like, "I have keys, I need to get rid of them." And I was like, "All right, I'll do it." And so, like, I had access to that software for the first time from the generosity of whoever it was that did that sponsorship. And so, like, acts like that can really make a difference. And I'm not the best at layout, but I do have Affinity Publisher now, and it's good. So yeah, there's also something to be said about this space's reliance on crowdfunding as a model. It's very strange. It's very strange, and it's not something that I totally understand yet. And I understand that, like, publishers do need the money to produce the books and to do the distribution and stuff. But that's, I mean, there are a couple of companies, like, big ones, like, Wizards of the Coast does not crowdfund. I mean, they don't need to. But, like, I get that. But also, like, at what point, like, is there a more sustainable model that doesn't rely on crowdfunding? And so, like, the advantage is that, like, you already know that, like, there are people who are interested in buying your game. And so you already have that kind of buy-in, like, from the audience. And it's guaranteed that, like, these people will be excited to get the game. And, like, but there is a difference between folks who are like, I'm done this project, I do not need the money to complete the project, and so now, like, I'm crowdfunding for distribution, versus folks who are like, I actually have no money, and I'm going to use the money from this crowd fund to pay for an editor, to pay for an artist, and to do those things. So I think that there are, I mean, and I say, like, maybe there are other ways to fund it. Like, I actually don't know. And but it's not a conversation that I see being had in, like, a serious, like, here is another model that we can do, because it's not been explored, and honestly, I don't know what other models we could use. But kind of interrogating the way that the publishing in the space works, that could also increase access to to professional avenues for BIPOC. So basically, yes, I think that it is improving in that I can see people putting in the work, and that's really great. And I think that if we keep going in that direction, and we especially in North America and in Europe, and we're cognizant of the privilege that we hold in that regard, then we should hopefully things will get easier. So
thank you so much, Sebastian, for answering all that. Before I let you go, before we wrap up this episode of Dicey Banter, I would love to ask you one final question. It's a more personal question. I would love to know about what mark you hope to make in the space as a designer, as working amidst publishing. What do you hope for your mark or legacy to be in the TTRPG space?
yeah, okay, that's a good question. I mean, so I didn't necessarily do this to like set out to leave a mark, so to speak, but it's twofold. So like in terms of my role in the space, I would like to be known for, doing the thing, like, increasing access, as we talked about for BIPOC. I want to continue with initiatives like so Hit Point, so like with Constellation and with If I Were a Lich Man, those are two kind of indie indie games that
I love
that
the name
Hit
of
Point
that.
has
Every
published.
time that
Yeah, no, honestly,
name
it's
is
a
said,
really,
it's so good.
yeah, it's a
It makes
really
me chuckle.
fantastic name. Honestly, like it's a lovely box set. It comes with like four dreidels. It's really fantastic. Like the design is incredible. It's very funny. But yeah, so like with the indie games that we've been publishing, there's been a stretch goal for a grant called the Luminary Grant, and it's specifically it's money that we can set aside and send to game designers to support the creation of their games. And it's not like and so like, if I can give like, 4 people $250 per quarter, like, it's a small thing that would make a difference to folks who are just kind of doing this on their own. Maybe not. It doesn't matter if they're doing it professionally, but I would just like to see more games get made that wouldn't otherwise be made. And so like that's kind of to address the I need money to compensate myself for the work that I'm doing, or I need the money to maybe pay someone to edit or to do art for my game. And so like it's really aimed towards like those creators who who need a little bit of money, but like maybe not enough to crowdfund for like $250, but like to whom it would make a difference. And there's no obligation to use it towards the game. Like, if it's worth it to me to give a marginalized creator like $250, and if they need it to pay rent, then well, if you can pay your rent for that month, then you have one less thing to worry about. So then you can work on your game. And I would like to be able to alleviate some of those kind of real life stresses that people have in whatever small way. And so initiatives like that, I would like to continue doing those. I was really excited to do the Luminary Grant, and there are various folks who have received it. And you mentioned you're a stretch goal writer, and this is Jukebox, isn't it?
That's for Not Yet with Taylor.
Oh, it's Not Yet with Taylor. Okay, excellent. So I'm getting them mixed up.
Get the game.
Yes. Plug it. Okay, well, in which case I apologize for mixing those up.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, but
I did interview the folks at Jukebox. That was fun.
Yeah, honestly, Lila is a phenomenal force. Honestly, her series on project management for tabletop is unparalleled. Honestly, we're working together on the Stormlight RPG. Like Lila's been phenomenal, really. But yeah, so like projects, I would like to be able to in my way contribute to these games getting made, and to help the designers reach their goals. And if not that, then I would like for these very wonderful creative people to I want to enable their continued existence. So like I understand that just life is really difficult. Like we're on a planet that's boiling and we all live in a capitalist hellscape.
Boy, do we.
So yeah. So I would like to do whatever I can to support that. And so it's not necessarily something I want to be known for, but it's a change that I would like to see, and I would like to be able to say that, in like maybe 5 years' time, like this is noticeably better, and I'm glad to have helped with it. So it's not like a personal glory thing or anything. It's just nice to be like, like everyone wants the kind of validation for like their hard work and whatever. And I think that's okay. That's okay to want. But I would like I would like for that to improve. But in terms of
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
I'm still kind of figuring it out because I don't necessarily know what like a long-term career in this space looks like. I've been
Yeah.
doing this since 2020, so that's 4 years, like professionally, as in like, you know, making money off of tabletop. But I think that like the themes that I like to work with, I would like, I suppose, for people to be like, well, you know, if I need someone to write about shame, then I want to talk to Sebastian about it. If I want, you know, if I want someone to write about doppelgangers and put them in my game, I want to talk to Sebastian. Like I would like for those themes to be kind of known for things that I am interested in exploring. And you know, every designer has like a few things that come up, like, you know, themes or motifs or kind of hallmarks of their work. And so those are kind of it for me. And for that to be something that I'm known for, I guess. But basically that just translates to like I want to continue to be able to work on these projects and to contribute like these themes and to encourage people to engage with difficult emotions. Like just being able to do that would be really, really great. And then you know, I don't know, like it's difficult to imagine like if I retire or whatever, then it would be nice to have like a, you know, big library full of books that I've worked on, that I've designed and edited or what have you. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's this is like the personal version of like, where do you see yourself in 5 years time?
Absolutely.
Kind of thing.
And I think your answers are deeply valid. Whenever I ask that question, I so deeply enjoy the different directions that folks take with it. And I think you've provided a beautiful answer, the both of
Thank
them.
you.
And those are things that are valid to want and to strive for. And you are valid to want them, and it's not shameful or embarrassing
Of course. Thank
to
you.
want to attach that. And with that, thank you so much, Sebastian, for being a guest on Dicey Banter. Thank you for being here. And as we wrap things up, please tell the folks at home who you are, where they can find you, and how they can support you.
Yep, so I'm Sebastian Yue. I'm a designer, writer, and editor of tabletop games. And I'm at Sebastian Yue on Twitter and on Blue Sky. So that's SebastianYue, all one word on both of those. I'm most active on those platforms, so feel free to give me a shout out. I really want to hear, again, I really want to hear about your Apocalypse Keys games. Like if you play the Untethered, tell me about your characters. Like, and also I know that all of you have characters that you are dying to talk to people about, and like I want to hear about it. So yeah, I mean, and that's like a whole thing. Like it's somewhat difficult to get other people to care about characters that they're not actively in a game about with, and like I get that, but also I want to hear about your messy queer monsters. Yeah. That's where you can find me, and my website is sebastianyue.ca, because despite my accent, I am based in Canada, so I'm registered in Canada. sebastianyue.ca/tabletop, you know, TTRPGs, like just as the acronym. That's where you can find my portfolio, and there are also links from there to like, you know, services and stuff. So if you want to hire me for projects, I'm open. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sebastian, for being a guest on my show. You've been an incredible guest. And with that, we'll wrap things up with Dicey Banter. Hi, everyone. I've been your host, Valiant Dorian. I assume his pronouns. You can find me all around the internet at Valiant Dorian or at also SpiritBear. Please enjoy that lovely treasure I just sent you on. Tonight, it's a distinct pleasure of being your host. If you want to keep an eye on stuff that I'm doing, as you know, on Mondays, we have Dicey Banter over here, where I talk to the makers and shakers in the TTRPG space. On Saturdays, you can find me over at Transplanar RPG. Depending on when this comes out, we're probably still in our mid arc hiatus. We're preparing for arc 3, but you can catch us on Saturdays 8 p.m. Eastern over at Transplanar RPG, where I play Sayer, the misbeloved twin brother of the Chosen One. I'm also designing a game, by the way. If you like Werebeast, if you love Monstrosity, and if you like Apocalypse Keys, you probably love Monstrosity. I'm developing an 80s and 90s grunge fighting game. It is a narrative-first action RPG called The Beast Within, where you play Werebeast. By the time this comes out, the quick start guide is definitely out and free to download, so you can go and play and enjoy the game ahead of the main release of the rulebook later. So yeah, go check out my itch page for more information on The Beast Within. And with that, thank you again, Sebastian, for being a guest. And we're probably going to
thank you
rate
for
somebody
having
amazing.
me.
It is a sheer pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
We're probably rating somebody amazing. Please go and send those also SpiritBear rate messages in chat. And if you want to support the show, please consider pledging on our Patreon. And with that, thank you all so much. Have a great, fantastic rest of your day. And I'll see you later. Take care, everyone. Bye.